Last Saturday, on March 24th, both Athens and Oconee held separate gun control protests as a part of the national rally known as March for Our Lives. The two protests each received a large turnout of people. UGA student Mallory Harris was the one who coordinated and started the Athens protest.
We thought it would be maybe 200. I've organized, I think, about 4 of these events in the past, and we had 100 to 200 people. This was probably closer to 500, and as you saw, we kind of had to make sure we weren't spilling over into the sidewalk. I got a permit as soon as it was announced, basically, and then just reached out to the Athens Anti-Discrimination Movement and the local chapter of Moms Demand Action. We also had Headcount Indivisible District 10 and 100 Plus Days Athens, who wanted to know if they could do voter registration and set up postcards to our legislators. So we partnered with them.
Moms Demand Action is a national organization for common sense legislation for improving gun safety and preventing gun violence. We're non-political, not trying to take anyone's guns away, but we're trying to work toward sensible legislation to help keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people.
And we always say we're not anti-Second Amendment. No one wants to take away the rights of law-abiding citizens. All we're demanding is common sense policy that will save lives.
During both protests, voting for and contacting representatives was a major point that was stressed by Harris and other speakers. To emphasize the point even more, several currently running representatives joined in the rally, including Deborah Gonzalez, Chalice Montgomery, Jonathan Wallace, Richard Dean Winfield, and Kelly Gertz.
I think people get desensitized, and I think people feel powerless, which is part of why today has been so important, is people know there are this many people in our community who support this. There are this many people across the country who support this, and we need to keep working together to demand change until it happens. And I think we're already seeing that they're starting to make a difference. It's showing that we're not going to let them turn the national dialogue, which is what always happens. People forget. A mass shooting happens, and a week later it leaves the news cycle, and we stop talking about how we can make sure it never happens again. Last year with our Guns on Campus rallies, we were able to get enough support and enough calls to our local legislators that a group of Republicans actually voted against putting guns on our campus, it's because they heard from us, and that's what's the most important, that we get our voices out.
Of the 96 people who are killed by gun violence every day, 60 are people who shoot themselves. And we as a society have failed to provide adequate mental health care for all of our people, and especially
I think mental health doesn't kill hundreds of people in 5 minutes. We have had mental health since the beginning of humankind. I think we need to treat mental health, but mental health is not a killer.
What I will say is 2/3 of gun deaths in this country are suicides, and that is very clearly linked to mental illness. And if people who pose a threat to themselves are not accurately put into the background check database, we are doing them a disservice.
We have to realize that we are the ones who created the world that is killing our children. And because of that, we are also the ones who can fix this mess. And for those parents who think this is not dinner conversation, this is not what we talk to our children about, talk now before it's too late and we don't have them at the dinner table anymore.
I don't believe in bulletproof Bibles or bulletproof backpacks, but I believe in bulletproof representation. Let me tell you something, I support the Second Amendment and our hunting tradition, but if it takes an AK-47 to kill a deer, you need your eyes checked!
This is not a new problem. We have had more people killed by gun violence in this country than we have had killed in all the wars that the U.S. has been in for American combatants. This is not a party issue. Our children want safety. There are Republicans who called me to say, I have had enough. We're dealing with the students who came here today and spoke about how they have a hard time trusting that they can do their job of learning the material that hardworking teachers are there to do because they're worried about getting shot.
Schools should be places where you learn how to talk, you learn how to solve problems using your reason, your intellect. That's why we are in school, so we don't use violence to solve our problems.
Several high school students from the surrounding schools also actively participated in the March for Our Lives rally. A couple of these students joined the guest speakers during the Athens and Oconee protest and gave their own speeches to the crowd, while others traveled north over the weekend for the DC rally.
Gun control is something that's always been really important to me as both a student and a survivor and an activist.
I think it's important for our voices to be heard and show that we're not just a generation that sits around doing stupid stuff, that we actually care about these issues and want to do something important. We did the walkout back on the 14th, and I think we're also planning on doing just a voter registration drive just so that people who are over the age of 17 and a half are able to vote come this election.
The most memorable thing was when Emma Gonzalez stood up, started a timer when she started her speech, and then stayed silent for 6 minutes and 20 seconds, which was the amount of time that the Parkland students were, stuck at the school not knowing what was going on. If there's one thing I think that the Parkland kids have taught me is that I can't, especially now, I can't afford to keep staying silent and letting adults shut me down when I try to express my anger and talk, share my stories.
One of my father's coworkers helped organize the march, and I got there and he came up to me and he was like, I know you don't have anything prepared, but we have 3 Central kids and no Cedar kids to talk. So I went up and I, just talked about how I don't think it's fair for us to have to be so afraid of gun violence while we're trying to get an education. There were a lot of really awesome speakers, there were some candidates there, and it was really inspiring to see all these people from so many different backgrounds and age groups, and I'm very glad that they had that at the rally, that they had those representatives, that they had the voter registration table for, kids like a year older than me who can vote up through adults and seniors. Honestly, a lot of people coming together sort of makes lawmakers hopefully realize how many of their constituents really care about these issues and how many of their constituents want change and need change.
I wish the people in power would actually do something productive with their power, but since they aren't, I'm very proud of the people my age who are actually making a difference and telling these people in power, do something or we will make you do something.
Inspired by activists across the U.S. fighting for gun control, Zach Holland, a senior, decided to start a walkout at Cedar on April 20th as a part of the national event in memory of the Columbine shooting. Holland is currently working with Mrs. Veritek and Harris to plan out the walkout.
After the Florida shooting, I was frustrated, a little bit scared, but mostly just really wanted to see change, but I wasn't quite sure how to make that happen. So a couple weeks went by, and I saw something on Twitter about a national school walkout on April 20th with over 1,000 schools being in it, and I figured I could do, and we could do something like that here at Cedar. So I had set up a website with the organization, the teens, I think up in Connecticut, that did it. There's a sign-up page. We've created an Instagram page with the link to sign up. Over 120 people have already signed up with the link, and many, many more have expressed interest in it. It makes it much more real and relatable when somebody is leading it or partaking in it. I've got a second meeting with her to maybe work out some details, but we both want to find a solution that would allow us to spread our message, but wouldn't be too much of a disturbance to people learning, because it's real close to EOCTs and APs and stuff like that.
I was really happy that some of the seniors are interested in planning for a school walkout. It is a real source of pride for me when I see students standing up for what they believe in, when I see students who want to stand up for what is right, who have enough hope and optimism about what we can become, that they want to be a part of that change. I think that there will be differences of opinions, and I think that there might also be opportunists who don't really believe in the cause but will use it as an opportunity potentially to cause disruption. So I continue to try and balance the educational opportunities and students taking a real strong interest in making a difference in our nation, in our policies, in how our schools operate. That is a very powerful educational opportunity.
A common theme for the March for Our Lives has been never again. With the amount of effort from students and support from adults, might this actually be the last time? This has been Katherine Wang from WJHG TV. Now back to the studio.